Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe at the end of this video and like this video if you learned something from this video, okay? Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a soothing face serum. This serum is for someone who is suffering from redness, whose skin is bleached and white dots and just needs to basically repair their skin, okay? So first things first, I'm going to be putting on my gloves. I have sanitized my environment. I have my recipe book by my side. I've used um, alcohol to spray everything, and I'm going to go ahead to measure out my ingredients. Now, this is not going to lighten the face, this is going to repair the skin, but it will keep your complexion intact. If you're someone who has bleached their skin, there's probability you might get dark, but I've tried to include some lightening agents in this. And my lightening agent today, I'm going to be using bearberry powder and um, tranexamic acid powder, just so that it helps to still even out the skin and doesn't take your skin completely dark. All right. So I'm going to be measuring out my bearberry powder. Today I'm using bearberry powder in 5%. I'm making 100 ml worth of product. So if you've known me for quite a while, you know that I like to use bearberry powder. There are two types of bearberry powder. There's the one from the tree and there's the one from the fruit. One is dark brown and one is light pink. I like to use this because of the color it gives and it has a very, very nice fragrance, okay? You can use bearberry powder in your soaps, in your face cream. It is an active. It's proven to actually lighten the skin. I'm going to go ahead to measure out my allantoin powder. I'm using allantoin powder here for its moisturizing properties. I'm going to be using allantoin powder at 0.5%. That's the percentage I like to use my allantoin powder because sometimes allantoin powder doesn't dissolve completely and it can be very bulky in your formulation. So I'm using this at 0.5%. Now I'm using my petri dish and my small scale because when I use it on the big scale, I can't get 0.5. So if you want to measure out, try to get, if you can get a mini scale, that's fine. But if you're using a bigger scale, your readings might not be correct, especially if you're dealing with 0.5s. So I've made this in phases. I have my phase A and my phase B. Most of this phase is going to be in the water phase, which is phase A, and then the phase B is the oil phase. All right. So for majority of this, like I said, is in the phase A, which is my water phase, and my oil phase, which is phase B. All right. So I'm going to measure out the remaining of my ingredients. I want to try to get all my water-based ingredients measured out first before I move on to my oil phase. Okay, so that's just me using rubbing alcohol to spray my bottle before measuring out. I'm sorry if my lighting is very poor today. I don't know what happened, but I think power went out while I was doing this, so my lighting was really poor. So I'm using distilled water for my formulation. I'm using distilled water at about 30%, which is 30 gram of my formulation because I'm making 100. Please make sure you're using distilled water or hydrosol in your formulation. Distilled water in this option is also in this formulation is very okay. You can also use hydrosols of your choice. You can use chamomile, lavender, green tea, any hydrosol of your choice. But I'm going to be using distilled water as well. It's going to get the job done. Remember, we want something that is soothing, not something that is very, very active. We want something that will soothe the skin and help to repair the skin. Okay, so please make sure you're using distilled water or hydrosols in your formulation.
So I'm going to be measuring out my lavender hydrosol. I'm going to be using 10% of my total formulation lavender hydrosol, that is 10 grams of my total formulation.
I'm going to go ahead to measure out my xanthagum and glycerin. I want to disperse my xanthagum in glycerin, get it prepared on the side. I'm using xanthagum as my thickener. You can also use carboma for your thickener, but I have a lot of xanthagum and I enjoy working with xanthagum because I understand how it works best. So I'm going to be using xanthan at 0.5 grams, but I would say to you to use yours at 0.1, 0.2, because I had extra xanthan gum left. It was probably a waste. So if you can use yours at 0.1, that's fine. I'm going to be dispersing it in 2.5 grams of vegetable glycerin. So 2.5 grams of vegetable glycerin. If you're using 0.1 gram, you can go ahead to use 1 gram of vegetable glycerin and add your leftover to something else. Okay, so I'm just going to be measuring out my glycerin. This is the way to disperse your xanthan gum. You don't apply xanthan gum directly into your formulation, it will become really, really lumpy. You have to disperse it in glycerin first before adding it to your formulation.
So this is what it looks like. It will completely dissolve in glycerin, and then you leave like that, and then you add it to your formulation.
So I'm going to be putting my Jamal Plus. This is my preservative for today. I'm going to insert a clip of how to use Jamal Plus. Jamal Plus is used in the water phase of the formulation. You're supposed to put it in before you add any other actives into your formulation, and it is stable at a pH of 3 to 10, which is a very wide range, so it will be suitable for a lot of products. I'm just going to be measuring out 0.5 grams of.
I'm going to go ahead to dissolve my allantoin powder in my distilled water. So I'm just going to put that in there and stir. I am going to double boil this, but I just want to make sure that I have all of the powder in there before I go ahead to double boil. Now I'm going to measure out my rose water. I'm going to be using rose water at 10%, which is 10 grams of my total formulation. I'm going to be using this to dissolve my bearberry powder. Bearberry powder doesn't really need heat. You can just put it in there and stir till everything is completely dispersed in the water and it's super smooth like. I have double boiled my allantoin powder. Now I'm adding it to my Jamal Plus because Jamal Plus goes into the water phase. So I'm just going to stir that together and then I'm going to gradually add my mulberry mix into this mix. So stir very well. You have to stir. If you have a stick blender, go ahead to use that, but you have to make sure you're stirring properly because you want everything to be fully incorporated. So I'm going to measure out my gel. I'm going to be using my aloe vera gel at 10%, and I'm going to be using my vitamin E gel at 5%. So you can use cucumber gel, you can use aloe vera gel, you can use any gel of your choice for this formulation. You can also use aloe vera juice, not the one you get from the plant, please, the one you buy from organic sellers. And as you can see, the gel I'm using is an industrial gel. I'm not using the one from the plant because some people react to the one from the plant. It can cause itching on the face. I'm going to be measuring out my um, D-panthenol. I'm using D-panthenol, and D-panthenol goes in the water phase of your formulation. So this is another part of my water phase. This is my lavender hydrosol. I'm going to be measuring my D-panthenol into my lavender hydrosol. D-panthenol is soluble in water. Like I said, most of the phases in this formulation is water phase. You can see it's of a gel-like consistency. So I'm going to put it into my um, hydrosol. After measuring out, I'm going to mix with my hand. Like I said, I don't have power and this is a very little amount. So I'm going to be using my hand to stir, make sure that everything is fully incorporated and is properly dissolved. I'm going to go ahead to measure out my active. My next active is tranexamic acid powder. Tranexamic acid powder is a very, very active ingredient. It's a very good skin right now. And I like to include it in my serums and face creams and all of that. Okay. So tranexamic acid leads it doesn't need a lot of heat. It can obviously disperse in water beautifully. I'm going to be using 2% in my formulation. So that's 2 grams for me. Just going to be stirring that in, and as you can see, it dissolved immediately. Just stirring that in, it's dissolved already. I'm just going to be stirring that in with my hand. So now I'm adding in my gel into my allantoin and beerberry mix. I'm going to be using my hand. This is very little quantity. If you have a small stick blender, that's fine. You can use that to help incorporate. But remember, I'm putting gel and water, so I have to use my hand to actually stir for quite a while. So I'm moving on to my oil phase. I'm going to be using polysorbate 60. Polysorbate is a solubilizer here. It's going to make sure that oil and water comes together beautifully. This is one key ingredient you are not going to miss in this formulation, because if you miss it, your serum is going to separate. So this is what brings the oil and water together. I'm going to be using grapeseed oil at 2%. I used my polysorbate at 5%, sorry. So I'm just going to be stirring that in. I'm using the same jar that I use for my aloe vera gel so that I don't have any wastage. So I'm just going to be stirring that in. Remember, water and oil doesn't mix well, so we need a solubilizer. That's where polysorbate comes in. I had to mix and mix and mix, use my hand. Oh, it was a very long process, but it's very rewarding. So as you can see, my um, liquid is beginning to lighten up a bit. I'm stirring and stirring and stirring. Oh, I stirred and stirred and stirred. If you have a stick blender, go ahead to use a stick blender or whatever it is that you use for your emulsifiers. But I just had to keep stirring and stirring because I had no power to use my stick blender. So I'm going ahead to add my lavender hydrosol. I'm adding my lavender hydrosol into this mix. And as you can see, it has lightened up a bit. I'm still going to be stirring to make sure that everything is fully incorporated. At this point, I haven't added my xanthan gum, but I could see that it was already getting pretty thick. So if you want to leave it at this point like this, that's fine. But I wanted mine to be a bit thicker consistency. So what I do is I don't put all my xanthan gum at a go. I like to put it in little quantities till I get my desired consistency. Like I said, I had extra left, so you can choose to reduce the quantity. Like I said earlier in this video, and I'm going to keep stirring till I get a very thick consistency. And so because I had reduced my xanthan gum, I went ahead to measure out the remaining 2% of my formulation. So I used liquid. Any other adjustments I made, I just put them into my rosewater hydrosol and then I'm going to add it just to lighten it up a little because it became very thick. And something I did was I used the leftover of this formulation to make a face cream, and the face cream is so amazing, absorbs beautifully to the skin. It's not greasy. I really enjoyed making this formulation. As you can see, it's thicker. And then I went ahead to put some on my hand, and then I rubbed in, and it absorbed immediately. It had this very soothing effect when applied on the skin. This would definitely help get rid of redness. So I'd written down all my actives, and then I decided that this product should have a pH of about 6. And so I'm going to go ahead to check the pH of this product to make sure that it's at a pH of 6, because all the actives I used are stable at a pH of 6, 6 to 6.6. And so because I do not want to make a mess today, I'm going to be using my pH strips instead of my pH meter, because I'm confident that the ingredients chosen give me a pH range of about 6. So just to quickly give us a backthrough of pH, certain ingredients work at a particular pH, and if they're not stable, they are not going to be effective, they're going to be a waste. You can use a pH meter, you can use a pH strip to check pH of the product. I'm using a pH strip in this case. So if the pH wasn't at the pH I wanted, I would use my buffer solution to increase the pH or reduce the pH, okay? And so your lye solution is to increase your pH, and your citric acid solution to reduce your product pH. My students will understand this. And so I have checked, and yeah, it's at a pH of 6, exactly 6. So I'm going to be showing you guys that's it on this. It's 6, exactly 6. And yeah, that is the end of this foundation. I'm going to go ahead to bottle this up. One of my subscribers is definitely going to be winning this. You know how we do this. Send me proof of you watching ads and watching the video from the beginning to the end, and win yourself one of this serum. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.